Big guitar.
And down over here in the bottom left-hand side of the map, we have the blue Protoss player representing good old Warty TV. He is Rail. Wow, these are long riffs.
Yeah, we got new long riffs, it seems. That's kind of fun. So
eventually, those riffs will just take so long that the cyber cores will finish by the time those intros are done, and then we'll actually be able to talk about the build orders.
Yeah, that's actually kind of perfect in a way. But yeah, Ravi, it's so cool that you bring up what you were bringing up about Rail, because I feel like you can really see how well a player is gonna do based on how much practice and how much effort and how much work they put in. And it's not instant, so I think that's exactly what you were describing, but we are seeing it now, kind of the rise of a player that has been putting a lot of work and doing a lot of work over time. He's also, I think, had a lot of growing to do personally. I'm not sure if that's a fair thing to say, but he went by other names. He went by Verdi before, right? This Rail is Verdi?
Yeah, and he would, and I think he would actually agree with you. He's like very self-aware whenever I've talked with him about, like, you know, he wasn't always the nicest, most well-liked guy in the StarCraft scene, but I think he has definitely kind of turned around. One thing I will say that's kind of a side effect of that I feel like is visible in his playstyle is I was talking about how Rail kind of has his own way of doing things, and for like different reasons than your style, Cats, you've always been known as a player who, when you play StarCraft, you have your own unique approach. And I remember something you used to say a really long time ago that stuck with me was, you didn't try to copy or follow other people's styles. You kind of just liked figuring out the game for yourself. And that's the sense I've always gotten from Rail in a way as well, like where he is just grinding out games and he's sort of discovering the game and how he thinks it should be played. It's not like a active, I'm gonna be different effort. That's just the way he learned, it feels like.
Yeah, it's exactly as you're pointing out. If you just, take the game, obviously you're going to be exposed to the ladder and to your opponent. So obviously you're going to have input as far as like what people are doing and catch some ideas there inevitably. But if you're not actively copying people, then it's very easy to come up with, your own reasonings for things. And that's always interesting to see. So yeah, there's definitely players that get a kick out of that. And I'm always happy to watch this type of player. So let's see what happens here as Rail is going to have the Stalkers and actually find the first pylon of PtitDrogo, which I think it was more of a spotter pylon, right? Like there wasn't really a probe or anything nearby.
Yeah, I think what it can usually be the most useful for is later on you can use those for Adept warp-ins, try and continuously shade forward. And it looks like these two Adepts are not exactly going to get caught by the other two Stalkers because the other two Stalkers are off-killing the pylon, but well, he's gonna actually, run into the little trap over here. So Rail actually manages to catch two of the Adepts. The Accelerator Zone almost allowing that Adept to escape a little faster, but ends up taking a lot of damage there and dies.
Yeah, Rail trying to go with a block. That's why the Adept was moving back and forth, the other one. So that was a pretty cool attempt at stalling the Stalkers from killing his first Adept, but unfortunately, or Drogo rather, but it's not gonna be able to happen. He does have a lot of sentries though, Ravi. This is a lot of sentries, and if he does get one Stalker, but not for at least 3 force fields, right? Like that's not nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, PtitDrogo, there's always one fear, which is like, you overuse your force field super early on, and now you can't even hallucinate Phoenix if you need to later on, if you see there's not a lot of Stalkers coming. But Drogo has that, and will also maybe even have a Guardian Shield once he realizes there's just more Stalkers coming. There's a Twilight Council going to be finishing up here. Rail is actually okay with being a bit aggressive right now.
Yeah, it looks that way. Those sentries are not really going to contribute much to the action, but the shield battery, that's another case, right? Like if you overcharge that one and your army's far forward enough, it's very difficult to do any damage. So we'll see what Rail is able to accomplish as he is going for an Adept warp-in to try and break inside of Drogo. But Drogo does have a probe in position, so I don't expect these Adepts will work.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that Drogo should have all the tools he needs to push this back. And Rail's going to also move back. I want to note, even though he was looking for an opportunity there, especially like you touched upon this, Paulo, and I think it's a really good point. If your opponent has so many sentries, they don't exactly have a lot of fighting power directly. So there's maybe an opportunity to break your opponent. But Rail was only on 2 gateways there. The Twilight Councils, you can see their blinks are relatively similarly timed. So it wasn't like a super all-in commitment. That being said, Rail is going to be behind about 5 or 6 probes, and I mean, the Sluice Phoenix that comes in sees the follow-up here for Rail, which is the Dark Shrine. So Drogo probably going to feel good about how these openings panned out.
Yeah, at least Rail will catch wind of the base. Drogo does sacrifice 2 Adepts for 3 probes. One thing that I love that Rail did, though, he didn't even try to shade in the Adepts earlier. He just hid them in the corner, knowing that his pylon would be spotted. Because, you know, like Drogo knows that there have been warpins happening, so there's a pylon around. The pylon's gonna get found, and the Adepts are already tucked away in the corner. So at some point, it's like Rail has, like, you know, 2 Adepts that are already ready to go out on the map, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there have been so many times, Gats, that we see a player that is really far behind or starting to fall behind in a matchup. Maybe one of the engagements doesn't go so well, and then 2 Adepts sneak in and kill 14 workers, and the game just feels like it's starting to turn around really quickly.
Yeah, 2 Adepts can kill workers so very fast, and you really can't underestimate them. However, they will be found, and they will be blinked on at the same
really
time.
Awkward. Yeah, because now Rail's going to be coming in from on the main arm. He catches all the sentries, force fields out a lot of the stalkers over here. Now remember, the reinforcements should be warping it over here for Drogo in a second, and it looks like with the shield battery overcharged, Drogo's going to have quite a bit over here.
Yeah, it's close, but it looks like Drogo's going to be able to push Rail away just ever so barely. Really nice force fields on the side of Rail, trying to make something happen. At the same time, he has taking his own third, and it is finished. So if we look at the aftermath, Rail is still trailing 4 workers or 3 workers now, but that's not so bad at this point.
Yeah, I don't think that's actually too bad, and also considering that the stalker count differential is actually not as large as I thought it would be. It's only PtitDrogo up 4 stalkers or so, but he does have that first immortal already out. It's definitely not as bad as I thought it was going to be after Rail didn't end up actually winning that engagement over there.
Yeah, one thing that I love about what Drogo is doing is how diligent he has been at every part of his defense. He still has that pro patrolling. He has 2 observers on top of his army, which might be a little bit too much way before DTs arrive. So it seems like Drogo is very ready to kind of be the defender. He understands his position, and he's taking no risks, and I really appreciate that. Even cannons going down in each base.
Yeah, I'm also starting to see like all the ways that Drogo's going to actually be climbing a bit further ahead off of that defense. So +1 weapons being finished and +2 weapons getting started now before Rail started his own +1 weapons. There's going to be a period of time where Drogo will have +2 weapons and Rail will be on +0. On top of that, the big gateway flood just finished up over here for Drogo, and he's moving out with it. Those 4 gateways he added on for this pressure are all going to be ready to warp in with that Warp Prism.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. It's like you're pointing out, it's a symphony for Drogo here, right? Like as things finish, as his plan kind of converges into what it's forming to be, he moves out, he knows how to apply the pressure and kind of take advantage of what he's doing. He's gonna blink in right away, get rid of the shield battery. This is a very difficult position to try and get rid of if you are Rail.
Yeah, Drogo trying to kind of cut off his units the right way to hit both an Asshole while keeping his immortal alive. Oh, okay. Well, that's a really nice time buying mechanism over here for Rail, but unfortunately, 1 or 2 DTs is just not going to be able to do damage fast enough, I feel like, to actually force Drogo back. Drogo's just doing so much damage before the DTs can start killing everything.
Yeah, very good blink back by Rail to try and protect his mineral line and his cannon. Ultimately, these DTs are doing what they can, but like you said, one at a time has been the warpins for these DTs, and it's just not nearly enough to mitigate the damage here. Rail already falling too far behind. He's gonna decide that's too much, and GG gets cold.
Really, really well done there by Drogo. Honestly, I feel like it was a situation where Drogo didn't exactly have the best of starts. Like you were saying, his proxy pylon got found, the depths pretty much got picked up really early on. The force fields came out from Drogo and they caught like 1 stalker, but you know, I got a little bit scary there, but after that, everything was coming up Drogo. Drogo was actually getting the better end of almost everything. The only thing that got a little bit scary, I feel like, was when the 2 Adepts on the top left like baited the entire army down, and Rail was able to jump on the rest of it with like half of the army missing, but even that ended up kind of working out for Drogo.
Yeah, it's kind of the dream when you barely defend everything, right? Because then you know that you're getting edges every single time that you're barely defending, as opposed to, say, over defending, where you might just have a wash or even fall behind. So Drogo, yeah, he barely had enough at every point in time, and that's exactly what you want to do. It's perfect, the dream, and it really speaks to how methodical he really is and how well he's playing right now. So I'm scared for Rail.
Yeah, me as well. How do you feel about like the DT opening or like the follow-up over there? Because I think opening with DTs like that quickly versus going for like a Robo as your follow-up after the Twilight Council or anything else, it feels a little bit more committed to saying like these DTs kind of have to do something, right?
Yeah, I think it's an issue of trying to complicate things for your opponent, right? Like the first aggression that Rail goes for, he amasses so many units outside of the base of Drogo that Drogo's gotta be worried. So does he drop too many shield batteries? Does he delay his own Robo too long? Like that's kind of the mistakes that Rail is looking for, right? Ultimately, he's saying overdo something so that my follow-up will actually get you. But Drogo was just way too good.
All right. Well, guys, we're going to be moving into game number 2 on Death Aura to see if Drogo can close this out 2-0 and keep his pristine score of 2-0 in the group so far, continuously pristine, or if Rail's going to be able to start pulling some games back, bringing his own score a little bit back further in his favor. We're going to be starting up here in the top left-hand side of the map, top of the blue Protoss player from Wardy TV. He is Rail.
And from Team Rai, it is PtitDrogo.
You know, Paulo, there are a subsection of players that get a little bit like minorly annoyed or perturbed when you say Rai instead of Razor Edge Gaming, because they're like, oh, what do you think this is? Some kind of bread? But specifically with Drogo, I always laugh at that because you know, like you always talk about the French bread and everything, the baguette for the French players. And then rye, it's just, you got rye bread. It's actually like, it's against the French player mantra of baguette.
I guess that is in a way, yeah, the opposite of perfect. Then rye bread is kind of like the opposite. Is that, would you say that's the yang to baguette's yin?
That's a great question, Paulo. I actually don't know what the opposite of a baguette is. I guess like the baguette is just supposed to be something like a really long bread, right? So
an inverse baguette would be something like, I think it would be like maybe the same dimensions, but the crust would be inside, and the filling would be spilling out.
Yeah, I could see something like that. Crust inside and the filling is spilling out.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of something like that. I guess it'd be like a donut if you shaved. It's like a donut or like a bagel if you shaved off the outer edge. You took off the crust on the outer edge of the donut, or a bagel, I mean.
Hells yeah.
All right.
That would be something. All right, so we have a very standard opening here, right? We have on both sides. PvP, double gateway at the ramp. Most people won't go for anything else on maps that don't have a ramp leading to the natural, so this is pretty standard. But the first deviation that we do have is what I like to consider the greedier sentry on the side of Rail. Of course, it's gonna give some information to Drogo as far as like where the gas expenditure is for Rail at this point in time. But I like the sentry because it scales in the sense that it gives you the ability to hallucinate and check out what your opponent might be.
Yeah, I think Stalker Sentry for a really long time was like the go-to for most players, and then you occasionally have the players that would go like double Adept or something, but Stalker Sentry just feels like that nice middle of the road like you were talking about. Hussein Phoenix is going to be coming out. It's also worth noting that Rails Pro did see the proxy pylon location again from Drogo, but this time going for Stalker Sentry. One downside of that versus double Stalker, you probably don't feel as comfortable just moving out into the middle of the map with your lone sentry and stalker, because you know if you encounter adepts or stalkers of your opponents, you're probably going to lose your sentry.
Yeah, but look at this information that he's gotten so early, Rail, that is. He knows that Drogo went for the follow-up of 2 additional sentries, so his tech is going to be fairly delayed, and he also sees the Forge, so this can only be a couple of times. He also saw the Twilight Count. Like, he got full information off of this, right? So. And he's gonna get a pylon. I think this is a brilliant start for Rail right now.
Yeah, I think this is actually all working out really, really well for him. Now, the question is going to be, what does he do with all of this information? How is he going to exactly try and exploit this? Because when you do go for that faster forge, it's usually the Protoss players who are thinking a little bit longer term. They're going to go for +1 weapons, and especially, I would say, like a lot last year we saw this, but this year as well, going for that really quick +2 weapons. Getting up that +2 weapon upgrade in PvP is such an important upgrade. It is one of the most impactful upgrades in the matchup.
Yeah, why is that? I get it all the time, but I'm not sure why. Is it just because most Protoss units get like double the power? Or?
It's just specifically how all the damage breakpoints work. And by damage breakpoints, what I mean for everyone else is basically think of it like this. We say that a Zealot 3 shots a Zergling, right? This is an easy example that a lot of people know. Normally, a Zealot will take 3 attacks to kill a Zergling. If you get +1 weapons, it takes 2 attacks now. So that's what we consider like a damage breakpoint. It's a point where the number of attacks to kill something gets reduced. And a lot of Protoss units have like very sudden damage breakpoint changes when you get +2 weapons with like Immortals and Stalkers and that kind of stuff. So it just has happened to work out that it makes a big difference for a lot of units.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean the +2 attack, the attack in general for Protoss seems really strong. A lot of the units have high enough damage that they get double the damage from attack upgrades. So that also probably plays into those damage breakpoints that you've so eloquently described, Ravi. It seems like Rail is just gonna be going for extra Immortals here, whereas Drogo is gonna be going for the upgrades. And you know, like it really makes me think: is there nothing that you can do to punish Drogo's opening? Because it looks so very greedy, right? It was two Stalkers, then 2 Sentries, and then going into a Forge for upgrades, and you know all of this as soon as you could possibly know it, but he still doesn't go for anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a specific build that you could do after having scouted that was going to be the case with like where Rail was opening up with like a single sentry and everything himself. I'm actually not too sure. You probably have to ask the Karsten or Roddy or something about that. But I do think that the way that Rail has played this out, he absolutely has to do something soon, right? You were talking about how he was going and investing into the earlier Immortals and everything. I think this is going to be his attempt to try and punish it. And you can kind of see the timing of it. He has a good read on what Drogo has been going for. He's hitting, while +2 weapons is still in production, charge is not finished up. You can see Drogo's actually starting up a lot of skill batteries right now, and we're gonna just try and delay this push as long as possible.
Yeah, but that's all the sentry energy he had as well. The charge lots are gonna really help on the side of Drogo once the charge is completed, though all of this army of Rail does not deal well with charge lots. That's a lot of force field spent just for a unit or 2. Nice counter run by Drogo. Good eye on our observer now there to catch that, but is this gonna be enough though? It looks like Rail still has a lot. Drogo overcharging the battery that's furthest away as well. It doesn't seem to matter for the moment. Rail is pushing on forward and Drogo's conceding space.
Yeah, that Prism getting involved was a big deal, but it's gonna actually get sniped off over here. No, Prism's trying to finish it, and he finally finishes it, but he's lost so much in the process. Those Immortals staying alive made such a world of difference, and Rail breaks through, ties up the series 1-1.
Yeah, and Drogo looks a little bit confused there. I was curious to see his reaction of all players. I don't usually look at the cameras for the player reactions, but with Drogo, I felt like it. You always gotta be looking there, and and he looked a little bit confused, even scratching his head. So it seems like something went wrong, went off, or he expected to have a little bit more, but.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. And we're going to give Drogo a little bit of time, maybe rewatch that replay or something, see exactly where the micro went wrong in that battle. But guys, we'll be back with game number 3 in just a little bit. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the DreamHack SC2 Masters. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are moving into game number 3 here of our first match of the day. This Protoss versus Protoss between Rail and PtitDrogo. Rail able to tie up the series of that last game, able to punish, actually, yeah, Drogo with exactly what you're asking, Pats. Like, is there a way to move in here and punish this kind of build? It looks like Rail kind of found at least an answer that worked out well for him in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. He identified the blink very early. He went for the immortals, and he actually moved out with a 3 immortal timing. That was pretty sweet. He was taking a third, so it really felt like maybe he was just playing for the longer game or something of the sort. But no, I mean, that was a really strong push, and it worked out wonders. So love to see it.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we're going to be starting down here in the bottom left-hand side of the map, top of the red Protoss player from Raise Your Edge Gaming. It is PtitDrogo. Oh man, I feel like I'm listening to 90s music.
I'm curious to see what music will be spawned out of this man. It is the blue Protoss player for Team Wardy. It is Rail. Oh, it's the same one. It's just like the band just kept going.
It's a mirror matchup.
That is true.
Well, keep your eyes on those cameras, guys, because I feel like Drogo is always fun to watch, because I feel like he always plays around a little bit with the cameras, especially like at the end of a series. I feel like it's always like the game 3 or the end of the game 2 or something. To kind of play a little bit. He loves playing tricks with the audience or doing something on camera at the end, so.
Indeed. Now, Drogo did take a little bit of an earlier gas, but he's not going to be quicker than Rail to populate it. So yeah, I think this is pretty much just mirror again. Slight deviant, you know, they're not exactly mirrored, but they pretty much mirrored.
Yeah, I'm gonna simplify this to you, Paulo. They are 4 gas apart, and now they're not even 4 gas apart. Like, yeah, they're basically at around the same place in the end. They got the same worker count, and they got the same production bar on their next workers. So I would say, yeah, it's all looking pretty much par for the course. So it will be kind of interesting to see whether or not Drogo decides to open up with another one of those like double sentry openings, because you saw in game number 1, he got up a lot of those early sentries himself. Game number 2 also opened up with a handful of them like nice and early on. And it's been Rail that's kind of changed his openings a little bit, and he is going to be going for the Stalker Sentry again, same as like the last game, but Drogo's going to go for the double Adept.
Yeah, and I kind of like that, right? The Adepts can possibly kill the Sentry here. They could obviously try to get in, though, you know, that's going to be up to Rail to just block it with a shield battery. But 2 Adepts also will beat a Stalker. The Sentry really doesn't have much damage output, so this is pretty cool. Let's see what Drogo can do with them.
Yeah, Drogo got a little unlucky with how the openings worked out in game number 1, because Rail had gone for double Stalker and it was just like, I'm going to hunt these Adepts down. And then he actually got really good positioning on them as well. But this game, he might have a little bit more opportunity. It's not like a ton more. It's not like, oh man, you can end the game with this. But it's still definitely an opportunity to get something done. And these next 2 Adepts are going to have to take care of that probe. But the other 2 Adepts on the other side of the map, I think are getting ready to shade on forward.
Yeah, they did shade on forward, saw what there was waiting for them, and decided not to go for it. And this is their second shade, so just checking things out. There is, like you mentioned, 4 Adepts with 2 more on the way for Drogo, so we're actually gonna see potentially a 6 Adept move out. And the cool thing about those is, oh wow, look at Rail though. Rail recognizes what's going on, because I was gonna say the cool thing about that many Adepts is that you can actually just break through the shield battery when it gets placed. You just one-shot it because it doesn't have enough HP to, you know, to survive. But now what Rail is doing is just kind of walling off completely. There's no way those Adepts get into his main.
Oh,
or natural.
This is such a sick response. Yeah, exactly. Like, this is very, very clearly Drogo thinking about, all right, I'm making a bunch of Adepts, not only for the 6 Adepts to move across the map, but he might even go for Resident Glaze potentially here. But as soon as you shade forward and you're like, wait, why did my Adepts go to the right? Why aren't they going up the ramp? You see that, you're like, okay, yeah, throw down the Robo Bay. You can try and knock this down, but eventually, actually, a couple of these Adepts are just going to get picked off now.
Yeah, the gateway will be made on the high ground though, so yeah, Rail is very ready for this still.
Wow,
Okay, he's gonna
doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, that is a decent bit of damage on the side of Drogo. I'm not sure if it's enough. I mean, he's definitely ahead in probes, but he's going to lose his entire army for it. So I'm not sure if Rail can try and take advantage of that. Maybe move out right away and try to punish back.
You know what, Paulo? I'm going to say I think Drogo's probably pretty happy about this. Because think about it. Rail is investing into a robotics bay right now, right? So he's done that. He's sitting on 3 gateways and has, yes, 5 stalkers, but it's actually not that large of an army. It's not like he can immediately go across the map. And every second that goes by, he is just falling further behind because of his economy. It's going to take a while for his tech to actually pay off. I actually really, really like Drogo's position now. I think that was a great attack.
Yeah, you're very right about that. With the tech investment, it's not like Rail can do anything really to capitalize on it. I might have preferred to see maybe even a Disruptor at this point in time.
Me too.
The Colossus is kind of like just consistent damage output, but the Disruptor can actually turn things around. And yeah, you're completely right. That's a great assessment, Ravi, because with the Robo and the Robotics Bay investment, it's not like he can really just pile on the pressure and try to punch back anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I agree with you though. Like, if he had like a bunch more gateways, or like he wasn't just going for the fast tech up, I think there maybe was an opportunity for him. With those situations, like you said, you sacrifice your entire army. That's like the danger for the adept players. My entire army just got sacrificed to do economic damage. Now I have to survive against a counterattack, but there's just not that much fear of it. And I think at least a Disruptor, I agree, like a Disruptor maybe can do a bit more, especially when you're just behind. But a Colossus, man, Cats, I feel like I've seen this so many times in PvP. Every single time a player goes for Colossus, I'm like, okay, I know you can do this in PvP. I've seen it work, but I've never seen it work when a player is behind. I've only seen it work when a player is even or ahead.
Yeah, it's just not a very strong comeback unit in that sense. Now, Drogo is going for a little bit of a Stalker Rambai, and also I think I still would have liked for Rail to move out, because there was not going to be any army out for Drogo. So I think a move out, even if he didn't commit hard to it, would have been good to just make sure that Drogo delays his third a little bit and so on and so forth. Drogo with a good snipe on that pylon, but this is more army ultimately given away to Rail's Zealots. Or?
Yeah. Managed to get out of there with actually a majority of those stalkers, so really controlled over there. Nearly got the pylon, by the way, like I want to say 3 or 4 seconds after charge finished up, so maybe got close to delaying that, but I guess when you consider the fact that the army wasn't going to move out anyways, because it was going to take some time to move across the map, probably wasn't going to delay things too much. But Stalker's maybe going to find the Colossus over here, so that one Colossus barely manages to survive, and now the Zealots trying to close the distance. Force Field's going to block out the Zealots for a little bit, but another charge comes forward, and there's the snipe off of the Colossus.
Yeah, really well done by Rail, though, honestly, saving that Colossus on the first try, because that means that the Colossus continues to do damage output, and it has tanked as much as it could possibly tank without dying. So it has the 100% of its damage output, but has already tanked as much as it can, which allows the rest of the army for Rail to actually do a lot of damage to the army of Drogo. And now we see what we're seeing, which is quite surprising.
Yeah, Drogo's really struggling to actually deal with this army, and I have to say, I feel like Rail gets the better end with these weird, scrappy, very disjointed engagements, because the Zealots, frankly, the chargeless, you don't have to micro that much. The Stalkers, yes, they can do okay versus Zealots if you continuously micro them, but try microing them on 3 different fronts in 3 different battles all at the exact same time against chargelots. It's not easy, and Drogo is not only going to lose the third base, he's lost the majority of his army. He's down a lot of supply right now.
Yeah, Rail takes a commanding lead, and if we look at the chain of events to lead here, Ravi, it's actually pretty cool. It's the Zealots chasing those Stalkers into the main, the Stalkers blinking away, but down to the low, I guess that's the southeast of the map.
Yeah,
and then in doing that, it allows for Rail to think that he has a chance to intercept the Stalker. So he moves out with the rest of his army, which is already kind of hefty, with that one Colossus to try and intercept the Stalkers. But Drogo was going with his army to defend the Stalkers, which makes for such an awkward position because they kind of catch each other in places that they don't expect each other to be. And then Drogo thinks, I have an opportunity to snipe the Colossus, but that miscalculation of thinking that he could snipe the Colossus with 2 shots and Rail's actually saving it is what turns the entire fight around. And now Rail with a commanding lead.
No, I completely agree with that assessment. And it was like two extra stalkers would have made the difference on being able to snipe off that Colossus or not. So it was a very, very close call there. Drogo does at least have his +2 weapons upgrade advantage, and he is going for that Dark Shrine. Also starting up a proxy pylon, potentially get a slow warp-in of those DTs across the map, but before he worries about that, he's gonna have to worry about this army that's at his front door that's very ready to cancel that third base. I don't even think Rail has to commit up there. He's got a third base. He can just kill this third of Drogo and back off if he really wants to.
Yeah, and he's doing so elegantly, just splitting out the Zealots and keeping the rest of his army here at the front of Drogo, where he can actually just force field and use those stalkers at range to pick off anything that goes down that ramp. So very, very well done by Rail from this point on. It looks like he's just looking to retain control of the game.
And 3 observers are actually out right now for Rail. I'm not sure where all of them are. I know there's definitely some with the army. There's all 3 with the army right now. He's going to need to potentially recall those back because the 1 photon cannon, not enough to deal with those DTs. There's the recall coming on out with a decent chunk of the army. He leaves 1 observer with his army, though. That's so important. Manages to take out a couple of those DTs, and I think the rest of his bases should be safe now that he's dealt with the Archon. And he has enough to still prevent Drogo from moving down.
Yeah, this is still a great position for Rail. I'm surprised Drogo didn't manage to at least split one of those DTs at the very end there when the recall started happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's in such a difficult position. I love what Drogo's doing, taking a base, a hidden base essentially, right? He can't really walk down and take a normal base, so he's going for the Hail Mary here. He's saying, okay, I'll pretend to be on 2 base forever. If you attack into me, then maybe I can stabilize, and if you don't find my base, maybe I can stabilize.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough spot for Drogo to figure out where do you go from here. And I do like, and I was gonna say, like, I'm glad that he's taking a hidden base, and I also am glad that he's going to Robo Bay, because let's be real, Paulo, if there is, not just in PvP, if there is a comeback unit in StarCraft 2, it's the Disruptor, right? That is the unit you can build dreams off of.
Yeah, most certainly. 1 Disruptor shot can pay for the Disruptor tenfold. So it's really, especially when you have units that clump up like these Zealots, right? A good Disruptor shot will kind of reset a fight to where you can actually win it. That is unfortunate for Drogo.
Yeah, Hallucinating Phoenix scouting it around. Good. Actually, I have to compliment Rail on just having the onus to say, like, okay, why is Drogo still in this game? Why does he still have hope? Because I need to crush said hope. And so he scouts around, finds the hidden base, crushes a bit more of that hope. Drogo's going to try and reestablish his old third base location. But yeah, that first Disruptor is not even started yet. The second Robo is actually just now finishing up, so he's maybe going to have 2 Disruptors out if he starts them up immediately in time for a fight, but it's going to be very close. It depends on when Rail decides, yeah, I'm ready to move.
Yeah, it really comes down to that. I mean, Rail, I'm not sure what he's gonna have to do to fall back behind in this game. He is adding those Disruptors as well as second robotics facility on his end. I wouldn't mind seeing a 4th sometime soon, but he is kind of just preoccupied defending the bases that he has because he knows he has such a hefty lead, right? So he's adding like 3 cannons per base.
Yeah, I think that's going to be plenty to deal with any DT run-bys and everything, but 2 Disruptors are out over here for Drogo. He's starting up 2 more, and hey, the longer that he takes, the more ammunition Drogo's actually going to have. So Rail needs to really start thinking about, how do I actually make this attack move in sooner rather than later? He's going to use his own Disruptor to zone back Drogo. He's knocked down the rocks to open up the pathway, but good Disruptor hit.
Yeah, that's a good start, but the Observer is going to make it harder, increasingly harder now with it being gone for Drogo to land these shots. And I love what Rail is doing, breaking these rocks. He really wants to make the area larger because he has more army, and it is going through those chokes in a clumped up form that could potentially lose him or at least reset the game to where Drogo is within reach. As it stands, this is a lot for Rail. This is a big Disruptor shot, but the Blink will avoid it, and now Rail just seems to have way too much. A Disruptor will land on the 2 Colossus in the back, but that's just not nearly enough.